what is going on? What are we going to do about the fact that this kind of top secret information is being exchanged out of the proper channels?
It's a great question. It was an extraordinary breach of protocol, jeopardizing America's national security. But I think what it highlights is that this is an administration filled with incompetent and unqualified individuals. At the same time, they want to gaslight the American people and say they're all about merit. They're not about merit, which is why the attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion are all phony. Because at the end of the day, diversity, equity, and inclusion are about making sure everybody has an opportunity to be able to allow their God-given talent and ability to be utilized free of discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
So this group wants to lecture America about merit, and Pete Hegseth is the most unqualified defense secretary ever in American history. And now that incompetence is jeopardizing America's national security. So in the Senate on Tuesday, there's going to be a hearing, which will be open and available to the American people, held by the Senate Intelligence Committee. And then on Wednesday in the House Intelligence Committee will have a hearing led on our side by Congressman Jim Himes to get to the bottom of what happened, why the heck did this happen, and of course, how do we prevent this type of breach from ever happening again, and exploring what the consequences of this failure should be.
Right. Now, I agree with you that there's incompetence, because how do you add an editor to your Signal chat? But the fact that it was done on a Signal chat, there's a certain deliberate way of skirting around the system. And we're seeing that pattern with this administration. There's incompetence, but there's also an intent to flout the laws that would normally land somebody else in jail. Are we going to talk about that part, about the fact that they know better and they're choosing this route after butter emails us to death? They're doing this knowing that's not protocol.
Yeah, it's a really important observation. And I think what we are seeing from this administration to be comprehensive is that there's incompetence and then there's arrogance.
There we go.
And the arrogance piece of this relates to believing that they're above the law and they're above the norms and they're above the standards that every other administration has been held to and lived by in the best interest of the American people. So certainly in the context of the hearings that are going to take place tomorrow and Wednesday on the Hill, which is just the beginning of a march toward accountability.
Right.
And let me just say, as a Minnesotan, Pete Hegseth is the worst export from Minnesota that we've ever seen, right? And let me be honest about something. His actions, his very, undisciplined way of communicating put Americans' lives at risk, right? And he needs to either resign or be fired because at the end of the day, I want you to think about what these folks, Elon Musk and these teenage Doge brothers are going around to the Social Security Administration, to the IRS. They're accessing all of this private and confidential information on millions of Americans. If they can't even keep our war secrets private and confidential, how in the hell are we expected to believe that they're going to keep our private information confidential, right? There's more to this story that needs to be told. And at the end of the day, there needs to be accountability. And I'm glad that Leader Jeffries and the House Democrats and folks in Congress are going to do that. But there's a lot more questions that need to be answered. And Pete Hegseth needs to resign or be fired by Donald Trump.